Hi everyone, this is Stacy and I am on vacation this week in Japan. So who knows what I'm doing right now? I could be climbing Mount Fuji, I could be sitting on a bullet train, I could be sticking money into a mystery vending machine at this very second. So this week, instead of a full-length episode, Devyn and I have a little mini episode for you. We sat down and had a conversation. What would we do in certain renovation and restoration scenarios? We'll be back with a regular full-length episode in 2 weeks.
Some of the things that be talked about in restoration are how much of a purist you want to be. Do you want to go and replace your plaster with plaster, or do you want to use sheetrock or a combination thereof? I think those are important. That's an important question to ask, because a lot of people will go in and they'll do renovation on their house and they rip all the plaster out, lath and plaster, and they just throw sheetrock up. And I don't think you can replace that character once you've taken it out.
I think that's very regional dependent too. For instance, when I've done some electrical work here, I've called in an electrician and we're talking about new wiring. And I have never once been asked in my area with lots of old historic homes, they've never once asked me, are we just tearing out the walls? No, nobody's ever asked me that. We're tearing out the walls to fix the electricity. However, I have had contractors when they're bidding a whole project, like a kitchen or a bathroom, that's one of the first things they ask me. They say something like, we're just going to tear everything down to the studs, right? And it's interesting to see the difference between different types of contractors and the importance that they place on those elements definitely of an old house. And I don't know if your house has plaster or drywall. Mine has a little of both. So what would a scenario be in which you would take out plaster and put drywall instead?
We're going to do our next big project is going to be in putting a master bath in, and it's going to go into an odd L-shaped bedroom that's currently upstairs. And there is going to be a lot of the plaster is going to be retained, but we have to be realistic here. We're going to pull the floor up down to the joist because we have to run plumbing underneath it. We're going to open up the walls for plumbing for the shower. So there will be places where there will be sheetrock. My goal, and honestly, I'm okay with sheetrock on a ceiling because I'm not tapping a ceiling with my finger to know the difference. And it's not that I walk around my house tapping the walls to know whether it's sheetrock or not, but there's a feeling that you get. So the sheetrock will be on the ceiling without any doubt. And on the walls, it's going to be minimal. Wherever I don't have to use it, I'm not going to.
Right. And that's interesting. You know, there's a whole field also. They're called architectural conservators, and they focus on the materials and determine the best way to repair and to retain historic elements. And some of those products, modern products, are acceptable to use in those terms. Like I talk a lot about the Abitron system, the wood epoxy and liquid wood, that kind of thing. Not a commercial, not compensated for that. But that is one of those types of products that is approved by architecture conservators as a product that could be used in authentic restoration, going back to that restoration word. And I use it on windows a lot.
Right. Well, that makes the most sense.
Maybe we should play a game. What would Devyn do? What would Stacy do? So throw out scenarios, throw out modern scenarios and see in what way would we use those, just for fun, just to see where this would go.
Okay. So would you reuse an old toilet for its beauty, or would you put a modern toilet in?
Oh my gosh, that is a good one. You started off with a really good one. All right, so I am practical to my core, and therefore I would choose a low water, high functioning, super duper, send everything down as fast as possible, new toilet. And I can appreciate a beautiful toilet. I have quite an attractive one in my basement that I am never, ever sitting on. I can tell you that right now.
Yeah, that's actually easy for me because our house didn't have toilets when it was built. So anything that we put in is more modern than the house is. The bathroom was renovated in the 80s, so there's nothing older than that already. We will definitely have modern toilets in our house.
Okay, now, gosh, you started off with such a good one. Oh, now what would I ask you? Let's see. Would you ever add a chandelier or a light that is, well, you didn't have electricity when your house was built, but let's pretend you did. Would you ever add a chandelier in a place that didn't have a chandelier because you thought it would look good?
Yes.
Okay. I need more
That's
than that.
because I love crystal chandeliers, and I think that they should be everywhere.
Okay.
No. Now, I will say that I prefer antique lights and old lights, but I'm a person who thinks that lighting is what makes a room. And so we will definitely be having fancier lights than would have been here when our house was electrified.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I'm not a purist when it comes to that.
Yeah. I don't even know. I can't believe I even asked you that. You know, we have a whole episode that you did. Basically, it was Devyn knows a thing or two about light bulbs. So I should have known how excited you get about lighting and light in general. And I guess when I asked that question, what if there was a blank spot that never had a light at all? Would you add a light there? Let me clarify that and say that would you add it in a place that doesn't really need extra illumination? It would just be purely beautiful.
Yes. Well, when we did the rewiring for our house, we had 2 sconces added in the stairwell because there was no lighting. So that was for functional because we need light in the stairwell. And we also added a wire in to put a track light in the hallway for lighting up art on a separate switch. So yeah, I would.
Okay.
I would.
Interesting.
If you're working on some doors, interior doors, would you go with shellac or polyurethane?
Oh, man. You keep asking me hard questions. Well, doors. Okay, so you and I both know that I'm not using any polyurethane on the floors. That's absolutely not happening because we talked about that in the episode. It was titled Stacy and Devyn Talk About Hardwood Floors. We went through that whole scenario. But doors, man, that's a different situation altogether. I'm not sure why. And it's only because you gave me 2 options, shellac and polyurethane. And I do not love shellac at all. So choosing between just those 2, I think I'd go with a satin or a matte polyurethane. I think I'd do it. Yeah. But it would be a stretch. I just don't like shellac. I don't like the way it looks and I don't like the way it ambers and I just don't like it.
Yeah. Interesting.
I know. I feel kind of sacrilege saying that, but I just don't like it. I just don't like it.
Oh, it's perfectly fine.
Plus,
Absolutely.
it's made from beetles, right? I mean, isn't it made from like the lac beetle or something, or is that just the old timey thing?
No, I think it still is.
Okay.
I don't honestly know how they're treated.
Yeah. Is it a sustainable and humane practice?
Are they organic grass-fed lac beetles?
Yeah, I just want to make sure they have a really good life before they become a coating for a floor or a wall. What does a lac beetle even eat? Interesting.
They're in Asia. That's all I know.
But then the flip side to that, of course, is that poly is plastic and we've got all that. So there's just no way to win with this. I can't. If I'm vegan, I can't use shellac. If I'm environmentally conscious, then I can't use polyurethane. So I don't know. Maybe nothing. Maybe wax.
See, I would want to learn about the shellac as far as what its origins are and how it's made. Because I think I would be leaning towards shellac, not just because I like the look of it, which I'm aware that that's not your favorite look, but also I like the idea that it's easy to repair.
Yeah, that's true. It's true. It really is. I mean, it just melts right away and you can just put more on. And yeah, it's super easy. I agree that there's something to that for sure. So here's my new question. What would make you paint woodwork?
If the woodwork was not painted, I would not paint it.
Okay. There would be nothing that would convince you.
No. And I say that I see pictures of these amazing Victorian homes from the late 19th century. And they're like when you walk in, the reception hall is all wood. And I like wood, but there's a limit. I probably wouldn't own a house like that because it'd be a little too much wood for me, but I would never paint it.
Right.
What's interesting is our house is Greek Revival and it had painted wood in the beginning.
Right.
I'm going to be stripping it down to get layers off, but it will get repainted again because that's how it was. I think a lot of people don't understand that not every period had finished woodwork.
Right.
A lot of periods had painted woodwork. All the way to the 20th century, the colonial revival period of the early 1900s, those houses all had white painted woodwork.
I am quite sure that our staircase was always painted. So our doors were definitely not. There's evidence in all kinds of places that it was not originally painted. But I'm almost sure that the woodwork, even in our dining room and our living room and the staircase, was always painted.
I think you might be correct because your house has a lot of colonial revival elements to it, and that would have been appropriate.
I mean, when anything chips off or breaks away, there is no sign of any sort of finish underneath. It's just pure bare wood.
And I do think painted woodwork can be very beautiful.
But you're right. It is a common misconception that if you have painted woodwork, that it's automatically bad and you should strip it away if you want to really care for your house in a proper way.
Right.
Do you have another question for me?
That's a really tough one. Because there's the one thing I'm struggling with my house, which is the pot lights, which I haven't done yet.
Right.
After having that whole post about making this conversion and doing it, and I'm still struggling with it tremendously because it's a real, in my head, it is a permanent change and I'm altering the appearance of the house. But I'm also trying to be practical and realize that that's probably the best option, even though I don't necessarily love it.
Right.
Where did you use recessed lighting and why?
That's a good one. Also controversial. So we use recessed lighting in our kitchen. There are a couple of things that swayed me in that direction. The first thing is that I have terrible, terrible eyes. I do not have very good vision, and I need as much light flooding every location that in order to even see properly.
Right. You need to see.
I need to see. When it came to the kitchen, I really don't like track lighting at all. So track lighting would have been a little less invasive because you could pull it out. Groups that you do historic preservation, they oftentimes put things into a house in a way that can be removed. So if they're putting something in new, they're not cutting away baseboards or making holes in the wall. They're bringing it back around, I guess. Track lighting would fall into that category. You could put it up, put your you could take it down, and it would be like it never was there. But the other thing that my kitchen already had was a drywall ceiling that was dropped down. And I didn't really catch this, unfortunately, until I'd already ordered all my cabinets, and it was way too late to make a structural change. Or I couldn't reorder the cabinets. You know, that was half or more than half of the kitchen budget right there was just in cabinets.
Right.
But I realized that it had been dropped down about 8 inches to add electricity, and it was nothing fancy. I was really crossing my fingers I'd find like a punch tin ceiling up there or something, but that didn't really happen. So I didn't hesitate. The space was there. I needed the light. Nobody's really looking up. I had these 2 beautiful period sympathetic task lights over the sink and the island, and that's what people see and that's what people notice. Now, if you ask me would I do that in my living room, to me just feels very different. But in a utilitarian space, I didn't hesitate. So that was a very long answer.
No, I have to agree with you though. I feel like I give a pass in kitchens and bathrooms.
Right.
It makes a lot of sense to have it there. I do struggle with it in other parts of the house. I often see living rooms and dining rooms just punched with dozens of pot lights, and it just horrifies me because it does not look natural at all.
Right. Let's say the lot behind your row house became empty. Okay. For instance, and sky's the limit, you could put an addition back there. Would you, for modern life, and if this was your thing, would you put a room with a lap pool in it?
Probably not. It's interesting you say that because there are a couple of houses on our block where the row house directly behind it came down at some point in history. And so one of my neighbors a couple doors down, she owns her house on my block and she owns the lot behind her, which she has as a big backyard, which is a very rare thing. I have a 200 and something square foot backyard and she has 1,200 square feet in her backyard. And then there's another one where there's a missing house where they turned it into a parking spot, which is a highly coveted item in this neighborhood. Because they don't exist. So I honestly think if I got the lot behind us, I would also have the coveted parking spot. And honestly, I think a parking spot where I live would be much more valuable than a lap pool. Okay.
But are you against something like that? Another complete structure that would have...
Not necessarily, no.
Okay.
I think if the structure pays homage to the surroundings, I think it's fine.
Okay. All right. Cool. That's interesting. Thank you for listening to this mini episode of True Tales from Old Houses. If you'd like to weigh in on today's topic, please send us a message through our brand new website, truetalesfromoldhouses.com. And please share this podcast with anyone you think would be interested. While you're listening, take a screenshot and put it on your social media. Tell your friends and tell your neighbors. And remember, Devyn and I will be back in 2 weeks with a regular, brand new, full-length episode. Until next time.